We're finally here. We are talking numbers and we are speaking numbers with Republic Bank. Now, just for context, this Bajan Renovation project is financed by Republic Bank. So I've been spending a lot of time with them this past year. Not just for the property that you've seen, but they also refinanced two others for me. And that for me financially was a game changer. Now, while I may be a little further along in my renovation or my property journey, I know many of you want to get started and you have a laundry list of questions, and unfortunately, some of you don't want to go to the bank to ask the questions. But I'm happy that we have a space here where you are able to send me your questions and I have brought them. And you know me, I can ask the serious questions and the saucy questions and the questions nobody wants to ask. I'm asking about rates, I'm asking about the pre-qualification process, the mortgage process, second mortgages, because I know some of you want second mortgages. I'm also asking about age. How old is too old for a mortgage? And what happens now when you want to buy a fixer-upper? Because you all know that my house done bring me to a Christian understanding. I'm Kelly Johnley, and this is Bajan Renovation. All right, guys, we are in a boardroom at Republic Bank, and I'm actually quite excited to have this conversation. Now, I know some of you do not get excited when it comes to talking about finances, but I want you to know that we are here to hold your hand. Needless to say, I have done this a few times, and I've always found that the more information that you have, the more pleasant, the smoother, the easier the process is. You have managed expectations. Now, I know y'all keep the DMs busy. Y'all don't think a girl is asleep when the night come. And if y'all give me $1 for every person that asks me how do I get started, I'm cashing in today. So we are here with the experts because, you know, I'm only carrying this conversation so far by myself. And we are asking the questions that you have asked. Ladies, welcome to Bajan Renovation.
Thank you very much.
So the beginning is a very good place to start. And people often think getting on the property ladder is the mortgage application process. Where do we actually start when looking at a property?
A lot of people start off the mortgage process a little back to front. They go out there, see a property that they love, be it a piece of land or a house, and they're like, I want that. And then they get all excited, get their hopes up, come to the bank and recognize that maybe they don't quite qualify yet. And notice I said yet.
Yes.
So it's best to always get a pre-qualification. And what does that mean? Just simply understanding what you're likely to be able to borrow, what is comfortable for you to pay back, and what risk the bank is willing to take based on everything that you've presented to us.
Okay.
In a nutshell. So, for example, if my son were to go to a bank, to Republic Bank, and ask for a mortgage, they would want to know, first of all, what his debts are.
Important.
I mean, what does he have out there? Long-term, short-term. Most children or young teens or young adults around that age, they would have maybe a vehicle loan because in your 20s, so first thing you tend to want is a car.
Yes.
So, and that can take a huge chunk out of your salary. And when I say huge chunk, if you're looking at the average person around that age, they might be getting maybe up to $4,000 from what my experience of what I've seen. And your loan and your car payment is about $800 to sometimes $1,000. So already, you know, you're dipping into quite a bit. So what we want to know is what debt you have. Yes. We want to know how long you have it for. We want to know, you know, what income. Maybe, yeah, your income. Correct, your income. And then we also need to know what are your spending habits? What are you likely...
The travel.
Yes.
The bags at Christmas.
Well, everything.
Dining out. Anyway, it's not about me. Go ahead.
No, all of those things. So, I mean, and it's difficult at that age, because I'm using the age that you started with, a 21-year-old, because that's at the age that, you know, you've been liberated, so to speak, from childhood to adulthood. You're pretty much on your own, and you want to enjoy and experience life. But it's also a time when you have to really sit and think about how are you going to map out your future, especially if you want to get a home. So you have to learn to cut certain things.
I told you all right, this property thing is not for the weak. At some point, you're going to have to make sacrifices, but trust me, they're usually just for the short term. So now that I brought my information to Republic Bank, I've brought my job letter, I have brought my proof of address, my IDs, as well as supporting documents for any other debts or assets you may have, because they do take any assets you may have. You may have had a small inheritance, cash on the bank. The pre-qualification amount, just to be clear, is how much the bank is willing to lend me for a property.
That's correct.
That's
yes,
correct?
that's correct.
Okay. Now, I have heard several realtors say this. They're not entertaining offers from anybody who's not pre-qualified. And I think it's important to know this, because as you look in the market, as you say, people get really excited, you know, and they come back and they want to buy something, and you now have to establish the relationship with a lender. But being pre-qualified, your foot is already in the door. Your foot is in the door. So we have to do this.
Yes, there is something I want to make very clear though
Tell
with the
me.
pre-qualification. That is a pre-qualification at that moment in time.
Correct.
Good point.
Right?
Yes.
So at that moment of time, what you presented, that's how it is. Based on the information you've given, that's what you qualify for. So what often happens is people get we give a mortgage certificate, which the realtors and the developers tend to like. And they take that, run with it, they go and look for a property. But all the while, you know, they may get excited about something else and take out additional debt, or their salary may change for the worse. Or if it's a couple, for example, as we saw, unfortunately, in COVID, somebody may have been laid off. So your circumstances change. And if they've changed downward, and let's say now you're ready and you come back to the bank and you say, great, you told me I qualify for 600,000. I found a property for 500 and something thousand or 600,000. Let's go. When we actually run the credit checks now, we realize you've taken out additional debt and it's changed, and also time has passed, that is going to change things slightly.
I'm glad you said that, because it actually is on the pre-qualification letter, the terms under which it is being released to you. And it's important, I've been told, if you're actively in the market, at least check in with your lender every 3 months if anything has changed. Because what you don't want, when you find a good deal, like how I find a good deal, you don't want the bank to stick up, right? Because people like to talk about banks taking long, right? You see those kinds of changes, when you find an opportunity and you want to jump on it, believe me, nobody don't land up in the bank faster than me. Like, this updated 2 weeks ago and nothing ain't changed, because the bank now needs to send a letter. They need to respond to a letter from the seller saying that, yes, you know, Kelly has been here. We are willing to facilitate this mortgage. That is how you lock in a property.
Yes.
Right.
Good. So we've locked in this property.
Yes, and just one last thing on the pre-qualification, just since we were giving all the information out there, it tends to be valid only for 3 months.
See, I was told 3 months.
Basis. Because you don't want then that you come back and things have changed so drastically and that you have a challenge.
Okay, good. So you're pre-qualified, and if this is your first time, you're going to get real excited with this pre-qualification letter, and you know you're going to see the realtor sending your letter back and forth, and you're going to go and have drinks with your friends, and you feel you got a house. Well, the work now starting.
That's right.
We now have to go through the mortgage process. Now I want you all to drink your all juice and take your all vitamins, right? And I'm just telling you this, you know, because this is a safe space. Save yourself this trouble. Whatever the bank asks you for, just give it to them, okay? Please tell us what is required.
Right. So you're coming to an application for the mortgage. There are a number of documents we'll ask you to submit. I know it might seem long and never ending, but these documents are very necessary to help us in our assessment of the entire application. Of course, some people may apply for a facility which is a turnkey, which is just you're purchasing a property that's already built and you're just moving into it. Okay. But then there are also properties you're looking to purchase which call for renovation or construction. So the submissions that we require to do the assessment will change based on what type of property, what type of mortgage you're looking to do. So you come to the bank, you're doing your application, and after that, we're going to issue you with a commitment letter.
Yes.
So this commitment letter is very important that you take your time to go through all the terms and conditions so there are no surprises. You can take it away, you have a discussion with your attorney and so on because it really outlines all the terms and conditions of what you're getting into. Now, of course, a mortgage is probably the biggest investment most people are going to get into, and based on the length of time that you're going to be in this engagement with the bank, so to speak, you want to be sure you're comfortable with the repayment terms and all the conditions and so forth.
And that's the time to have this conversation
exactly,
with you. Okay.
Right? It's the time to have it before any funds are released or disbursed, so that if there's any negotiation you need to do with the seller, the vendor, you can do that upfront, right? Because after you sign the commitment letter and then it goes off to the attorneys for the security to be perfected, we will then go through the part where you're doing the sale agreement, discussing the terms of what is the vendor selling you. If you're constructing, how long is the construction going to take to complete? Because one of the things that happens is that in construction, you're doing it by bridging. You're disbursing the funds in stages.
So I've heard.
You're not getting the funds all at once.
That is true.
And there can be hiccups, right? Weather conditions, different things happen, right? Materials that have to be brought in, it can delay the process, right?
Yes.
So you want to be sure that you drill down into those penalties to the contractor to understand if there are delays, how does it affect your building? Because remember, when we're negotiating the mortgage up front, you're given a particular period of time to repay this facility. And you don't want that you lose out on the time, because then it can affect the repayment terms of that facility. So this is why we take our time. I know in this era, everybody knows everything to be instant. But with a mortgage, you really need to take your time to just be very comfortable up front and to understand all the terms and conditions before you want to know why it's taking so long and all these different things. It really is a process, and it does take patience to go through.
It takes patience, but one thing I have learned over time, because I did not have this patience the first time around, is that a lot of what is being done is really in my best interest. A lot of what happens is a legal process, and you sometimes hear it. I heard it as recently as last weekend. Someone so close on a property and they now find out that they can't legally own the property because the person selling it did not legally own the property. So the whole agreement is now in jeopardy. I think sometimes people, I guess because they're not aware, they undervalue what is really happening behind the scenes. And I can say, particularly going through at least what by my standards was a more complex purchase recently, I was grateful for all of those checks and balances. I was grateful that yes, the seller has to present the water bill and the light bill and the land tax bill and the boundary lines and all of these things, because when this property closes, any debts or grievances attached to the property are now yours. So I'm just saying, it really is for your own good. And what you said, Renata, in terms of going through that commitment letter, it really is not a document to brush through. Take your time, you drink your tea. We spend worse time doing less important things, and go through it to see what your payments are and have a conversation with the bank. Like if it comes down by $200 or $300, it might be more agreeable. Can we add another year to the mortgage? This is the time to really settle it.
Exactly. Okay. Right? And you also need to understand in terms of, for example, going back to construction again, I'm saying that because that's the more complex type of mortgage. You need to understand what does a bridging facility mean, which is the part we're dispersing in stages. Because the longer that you take for that contractor to stick to what the timelines are, the shorter the mortgage term is going to become. Because if it's 30 years and it's 6 months to build, you don't want him to be 12 months and still building. 13 months, because then the time frame for the actual mortgage with the blended payment, that actual monthly payment you've negotiated, will become shorter and the payment will become larger. So when we are just going through that process and trying to stay on top of what's happening, and we're calling to do a site visit to see where you are in the process, we don't mean to bombard you or be intrusive, but it's just to make sure that we're sticking to the timelines and seeing if there are any hiccups, that you keep the bank well informed so we can guide you.
Okay, so we've pre-qualified, but I know that as we look around for our preferred bank or preferred lender, we want to know what goodies are in the bag, right? Yeah. Now, I know that I have benefited from goodies. I want to know for my first timers, can you still get 100% mortgages in this market?
Yes, definitely. As a first-time borrower, you can get 100% financing up to $600,000 Barbados dollars. However, I think important to mention would be that some customers want to include legal fees. Legal fees would not be included in that, 100% financing, but we can do a separate facility to cover those costs once your salary kind of accommodated.
So I can build my legal fees into my overall mortgage request.
Well, no. The mortgage request, we would do the mortgage up to 600,000 at 100% financing, which means you make no injection.
Got you.
However, every mortgage carries legal fees. You may not be able to afford to cover the legal fees. So we can do a standalone facility, a personal facility, or a separate facility, so to speak, that would cover your legal fees once your salary can accommodate it.
Okay, so we can get a 100% mortgage.
That's correct. As a first-time borrower.
As a first-time borrower, up to $600,000.
Yes.
That's a good limit. And there is the option to have a facility for the lending of the legal fees also.
Yes, that's correct.
So we have our property now, and I know I won't get into timelines too much because I know it is often also influenced by the seller and the attorney process. But we started by speaking about young people wanting to get on the property ladder. And then there are people who say, I'm too old to get on the property ladder. So I got this recent property in my 40s. And as I mentioned, I'm going to be back, so I can talk to them real nice today. Does the bank have a limit in terms of when we are not lending you? You know, who are we lending to? Are people coming in their 30s, their 40s, their 50s? What can we look forward to? What can we look forward to next year?
Well, we don't discriminate against who we lend to.
Okay.
We stick to the quantitative data and some aspects of qualitative data. That being, we obviously want to make sure that you're able to service the debt for the duration that we signed up for. So if it's a 20-year facility, if it is that your job or whatever you do, we have to be able to see that it's something that you could possibly do for the next 20 years, or if not, you have the ability to be able to have something else along the same lines that would take you up to that stage. Other than that, we don't discriminate. We look at the data and we see whether or not you qualify. We obviously, the only time I would have to say we discriminate is on the actual property itself. If the property cannot be held as security and it is dilapidated and likely to fall down, then no, we wouldn't lend on that.
I understand. Yeah. Sandra said that so politely and so gently, right? The bank just wants to know that you are going to be able to service this mortgage, okay? They're going to look at your age and your financial capacity, okay, to do so. But I'm glad you said what you said about if the property can serve as security. Because I am doing a fixer, a lot of people are like, yes, I'm going to go and borrow the money for the fixer. And the thing is, the fixer might come at quite a low price. And it's like, you have to demonstrate to the bank before we close on this property how you are going to fix it. And it's going to either be with their money or your money. And the disconnect, for just say the come to Jesus moment for me, is when the bank said, so, no, we will lend you the money, but we really do need to see, this being your third time around, what is your financial wherewithal here? I'm glad you said that because people think you just buy the property. You could pick what you want and fix it when you feel like.
No. And on that note, actually, when you think about it, so to use your example, I'm not too familiar with every little detail of it, but let's just say you purchased a property and it's what they say a fixer-upper. So we want to know that our security at the end stage is going to be valued X amount. So we didn't talk about it yet, and I don't know if you were going to talk about it, but let's talk a little bit about the valuations that you have to get, because that is an area.
I spend a lot of time with valuers too. We have conversations.
Yes, and we need to. And don't underestimate it, because a valuation can make or break your deal. Simply on the fact, let's use one example just to keep it on track for now. So you go ahead and you purchase a fixer-upper. The bank obviously cannot hold that as security in its current state because...
So alert.
Yes. So we want to know what the end stage is going to be. So what we do is you say, okay, this is what you want to do. You probably get, an architect or somebody to come, or a contractor, whoever, and they're going to tell you this is what they're going to do and this is what it's going to be in the end and this is how much it's going to cost.
Yes.
What you would have now is a QS, a quantity surveyor, and a valuer. They're both important for construction. the QS simply because they want to know the integrity of the building.
Yes.
And to make sure that, it's in good standing and it's within the building codes. And so they would value the property as is. Then they would look at the end stage based on your drawings. Yes. And they would want to know, okay, this, in their opinion, based on their professional opinion, this is how much it's going to take to finish that. Now, sometimes there may be a variance between what your contractor is saying is going to cost to finish versus what the valuer or the QS is saying. And as long as the difference doesn't vary more than 5%, we're okay. But it's where you have the differences of where it's going to cost more in the QS's opinion to build. Because then, it could be then that your contractor might be able to purchase the items in bulk.
Yeah.
And we're okay with that if they can show that they can get a deal.
Yeah.
And they can purchase in bulk so they don't have to spend so much. But then those that are glaringly different, then we normally fall on the side of the QS / the valuer, and we'll go with that. So that presents a problem because then you may not qualify for that amount. So these are just conversations that you have to have.
I'm so glad, and I'm smiling, right? And I'm almost trying not to laugh because for, my Bajan Renovation OGs that drink tea with me every Sunday, one of them messaged me and were like, so how come we in City House recently? Because the bank called me, okay? For all of you all who were saying, Kelly, but you seem to be licking down a lot of house. So the banks, apparently the saw. Turns out they watched the show. And we just recently, I could say, closed that conversation of the funds borrowed will not cover the scope of work that you went on your own, right, and decided to undertake. However, please refer to section A, where you said you had X funds to close the gap. Please to go and close the gap, right?
Right.
And then you can get the balance of the money.
Yes.
Because I was feeling real smart. I was like, okay, I'm working on some projects. So what I'm going to do now, let me go to the bank and get my second drawdown and complete this thing. And they were like, okay, because so good to see you. Yes, see it here. Right, you said that you would put in $50,000. Okay. All right, well, let us know when you're
going to come back. And that happens really, Kelly, because normally
and I have to go like that.
Yeah. Because you need to inject up front.
Yes.
You need to put your injection up front, and then the bank will release at that point in time. So you have to have what we call some skin in the game for projects like that.
And apparently they were serious, and they did have the conversation with me. I was just hoping they forgot, but turns out they didn't. So yeah, I just spent the money that I said that I had.
Yes.
Apparently y'all really did want it.
Well, we believed you.
We believed you.
Clearly.
Exactly.
Clearly. Didn't need to leave myself. But that is why you're all in City House, right? I had to go and find the money because I can't afford now to lose space in front of the bank. Because if I now come for a fourth property, I can't afford for them to say, well, remember what happened the last time? But I'm over it now. You'll see the house next week.
Okay, very good.
So this is a lot of good information. Now, second properties. My experience getting my second property was challenging. But I heard walking through the corridors, because I asked a lot of questions, that Republic is not averse to financing a second property, that you guys are mindful, aware of the fact that people may want to invest in a second property a little later in life. Can they come to you with this without feeling like, they're growing like a dragon head out their neck or something when they ask for a second mortgage?
Actually, yeah, so we finance second and third mortgages.
And fourth.
Yeah. Well, third.
Y'all have it on camera. Yes.
Yes, for investment purposes, we would assess it based, again, same thing on your income. So it's really a matter of if your income can carry it and what's your intention for the property. If you're going to be renting it out, we would need to have an idea of, the area it's going to be in, what's the expected rental income you're supposed to be, getting. But really, fundamentally, we're looking at your primary income to determine if you can carry that additional debt. And once you can, yes, it's something we would entertain.
That is good news, because I know early milestone in life, buy a property, but a new milestone seems to be to buy a second or a third. And just to have a bank say that, yes, this is a conversation that we are open to, you shouldn't have told me so, but at least you know, so that for those of you planning for the new year, because I know the new year is really a time that we get our head in the game regarding property, that if you're thinking about it, you can have the conversation with Republic Bank with the understanding, of course, that the terms are different. Because age and stage and life changes.
It would be slightly different.
But we're all going to have nice things together.
And, I mean, I wouldn't say it's all doom and gloom if your substantive salary doesn't cover a second property. That's what Renata's talking about, is in the event that you want to do it using your own income as a residential facility. But we also have a very vibrant corporate and commercial credit department. And if you wanted to get a second property and you had to rely on some of the income coming in to finance it, to finance the payments, then that's something that we look at as well.
Yes.
So we do take, you know, future income into consideration as well. Naturally, the terms and conditions would change. You may have to inject a little bit more, but, you know, it doesn't stop and start at your salary, because we recognize that people invest in different ways, and you may want to invest in a couple of properties, Airbnb, all different things are happening, and naturally you would need to use some of the income from there if your salary doesn't cover it. And then that's another conversation that we can have.
I'm glad you said that we can have these conversations. I think a lot of times people borrow other people's financial experiences and they count themselves out. They say, they count themselves out. So-and-so had this experience and therefore I'm not going to try, I'm not going to ask the bank anything. But I tell people that their financial life is as unique as their fingerprint.
Yes.
What happened for one person does not necessarily mean it will obtain for somebody else. But it's good to know that these conversations can be had, that as we all improve ourselves financially, that we can do more with our money, and that we can do it with Republic Bank.
Of course.
So Kelly, just lastly for you, so when you're finished injecting your amount for your house to bring it to a certain stage,
it has been injected.
It has been injected, okay. And is that the last stage, or then you still have a couple more stages after that?
That is the last stage, so that I can get my final disbursement from Republic Bank.
So what would happen is when you have your windows and doors on and it's plastered inside and out and it's what we consider airtight, you actually would then need to get your certificate of compliance.
Oh, great, more paper.
And that pretty much, that is something from Town and Country Planning. So then they would come and do their inspection and make sure that the plumbing is correct, the electricity is correct, that, you know, you've adhered to what they've approved and you haven't veered from anything. If there's a water tank that is required, at least you've shown where it should be. Once everything is, as they say, all in order, then you'll get that. And normally you can get a partial certificate of compliance, which will allow us to release the final amount, but then ultimately you will still need the final certificate of compliance. And then you can say that you're done.
Listen to me, when I started Bajan Renovation, right? I don't know, I did not expect that the renovation that I was undertaking was going to be as extensive as it is. And as much as our humbling, frightening, come to Jesus moment I had at the bank was about 3 weeks ago. That's why y'all can't see the house. My heart, I had to go and lie down. I had to lie down. To be honest, if I had listened the way some of y'all don't listen, the bank did tell me all of this early up. See, so the bank is actually here to help us. So as someone who is now learning the hard way, you know, I invite you to take your notes, to watch this over, and I'll see you probably, you know, in the halls at the bank, because I already told them I'm coming back. I'm Kelly Johnley, and this is Bajan Renovation.